Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more buckshot testing, and today we've got another new shell to try out, and it's one that several of you guys have requested to see, and I want to see how they do as well, because in theory they should give us a pretty decent looking pattern, but we have seen a little bit of mixed results when it comes to this particular size of buckshot pellet as well, so I guess it could kind of go either way. But as for the shells I've got out here today, I brought out some of these. These are some Federal Premium copper plated buckshot shells. They are the 12 gauge 3-inch 10 pellet load of triple-aught buck, moving about 1225 feet per second. Now we have tested this same shell but in the 9 pellet double-aught load, and it gave us some surprisingly good looking results. And we have also seen good results with the Remington triple-aught buck through this particular setup we're going to test today. So in theory these should also look pretty decent, but we just don't really know until we try them, because they are not a flight control shell and they are ultimately not really loaded any fancy way, but they are plated and they do have buffer material, which definitely seems to help in a lot of buckshot shells. So what can these 10 pellet triple-aught shells actually do for us today? And as for the setup we've got to run them through, I brought out the Remington 1187 here with the factory stock full choke. This setup has been a very consistent, reliable combination when it comes to starting out with testing new buckshot shells. So of course this is where we had to start, and I always get questions about it, and this particular factory full choke measures out to be right at a 688 constriction for those of you that are curious about it. So we should have a very reliable setup. I think it's just going to come down to what can the shells actually do. But as for the test today, everything is set up the same as usual. I've got the big sheet of paper at 40 yards. I've got the chronograph so we can get our velocity, and I've got some templates to lay up over the target for that better reference point as to how they would have done in some more real life scenarios. So enough talking, let's get you guys a view of this target and take this shot and see just what the copper plated triple-aught buck shells can do through the 1187 with the full choke. Alright, so that shell gave us 1153 through the chronograph. The boss claim is 1225, so we are just a little bit below that claim. But from what I can kind of remember, I think the double-aught copper-plated shells were a touch below that 1200 mark as well. So it seems pretty normal for these shells to float mid to high 1100s, and with a load of triple-aught buck at 1150s, you're still going to be plenty good enough out to 40 yards with it. So nothing too strange up here as far as our velocity goes, but what kind of a pattern were they able to give us down at 40 yards? Let's go check it out and see what we got. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. And I gotta say, that's not bad at all right there. For a 10 pellet load of triple-aught, I'll take that. We were nice and centered up on the paper, and as for the overall spread, from the farthest 2 points across, which is the very top pellet, down to that very bottom pellet down there, that gave us right at 22 1/4. So definitely not into what I would call flight control territory as far as the size of the pattern goes, but still, for a non-flight control triple-aught buck, 22 inches, not bad whatsoever. I'll take that all day long. And I still think we have a little bit of room that we can tighten that down a little bit as well with maybe the kicks buck kick or choke or something like that. So definitely looking very nice as for an actual spread, and it's really not super blotchy either. We might have one kind of flyer, that one up there at the top or something, but really the rest of them are pretty evenly spaced throughout the middle of that pattern. So this pattern, although it's not bad whatsoever, I think we still have a little bit of room where we can improve on that, which is fantastic if that's the case. So not looking bad for a start, but let's throw a couple templates up and see what it actually looks like in some more real life type of scenarios. Alright, so here's our 10-inch circle, and since we were pretty centered up on the paper, I just went ahead and put it right over the point of aim, which gave us 4 out of the 10 pellets in the shell that actually would have been within a 10-inch circle at 40 yards. 4 pellets of triple-aught buck going through the vital size 10-inch circle on anything you would ever use them for is not going to feel very good. That's going to get the job done. And there are a couple other pellets that are right on the very edge as well, just behind the edge. As you can see down in the bottom left corner, it is technically behind the template, and there's another one hiding just off the right corner up here at the top too. So I think if we tune that in with maybe the buck kick or choke or something, we might legitimately have 6 to 7 out of the 10 pellets in a 10-inch circle. So definitely looking pretty good there, I'd say. But what about an actual hunting scenario? How would it look then? Let's throw the deer template up and see what that looks like. All right, so here's that deer template, and out of the 10 pellet load, we had 8 of our pellets actually hit the deer, and that would absolutely hammer that deer. There's no question about that. You have a good handful of them right through the lungs and vitals there. You had one that might have clipped the spine up there at the top, and another one or two that might have got into some shoulder, which definitely would have probably stunned him and maybe knocked him down a little bit there if you broke that front shoulder. So I don't think we can really complain too much about that kind of a pattern. With triple aught buck, you got 8 pellets going right through that vitals area on a deer. That's going to get the job done any day of the week for you. So definite thumbs up for me on that one. I wouldn't be scared to hunt with that pattern one bit. But let's throw the hog template up there as well for those of you hog hunters that might want to use this shell and see how that scenario would have played out. All right, and here's that hog template, and it's pretty well the exact same story. You would have had a definite 8 of them actually hit that hog, and he's not going very far, if anywhere at all, with that kind of a pattern. A good number of them right through the vitals, right through that front shoulder area. Yep, I would say that you absolutely got him, that's for sure. So it looks like if you had just a stock full choke and wanted to run some triple aught buck, these copper plated 10 pellet loads would not be a terrible option. Now, of course, I'd suggest going and testing it through your setup before you just take it out in the woods, but these are definitely not terrible results at all. I would not be scared to hunt with that kind of a pattern all day long. And like I mentioned a little bit ago, I think we still have a little bit more room for improvement over that too. If we can tighten that down even just a couple of inches, you're going to have all 10 pellets within a deer at 40 yards. And with them being triple aught buck, that's going to absolutely hammer whatever you're trying to hit. So we're definitely off to a really good start with these shells, and I absolutely am looking forward to testing them through some other chokes and seeing what we can get, because I think these still have a little bit more left in them. So can't argue with these kind of results today, I wouldn't say. Okay, here's the wad out of that shell, and as you can see, it is definitely not a full-length 3-inch like turkey style wad or whatever you would like to call it. It is one of these shorter, kind of almost half-length wads, but from what we've seen out of these copper-plated shells, they really do seem to work, and I don't think that really was any different for today's test. I think it did exactly what it was supposed to do. There's no major damage, rips, tears, holes, anything like that. There's a little bit of that buffer material stuff still sitting down in there, but overall, nothing strange at all to see here. And I think it was able to control those pellets pretty well. So definitely nothing weird to see here as far as the wad goes. All right, y'all. Well, what did you think about those results right there? I don't think we can really argue or complain too much about that. That's going to get the job done on whatever you would ever need it for out to 40 and 50 yards all day long. And considering how pretty overall uniform that pattern is, we don't have any major flyers in there or any weird strings or anything. I think it's a good candidate to fine tune the choke just a little bit more, and we might get a couple inches out of that pattern still, where we can condense it down just a little bit tighter. And if that's the case, maybe through the buck kicker choke or something, that's going to be a really impressive looking pattern. I don't know that we'll get down into flight control type of territories necessarily, but it would sure be hard to argue with say 17, 18 inch triple aught buck pattern at 40 yards. So I'd say we're off to a really good start with that kind of performance there. But as always, leave your thoughts in the comments. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of the federal copper plated buckshot shells or the copper plated triple aught buck? And if so, what kind of results have you seen from them? Would you hunt with that kind of a pattern? And maybe is there another choke or something you might want to see us try these through? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.